Now I believe it's round. And what changed my opinion? Two things. Personal testimony, experience. Second, I examined the evidence. And what I want to do, because we have a brief period of time, is just examine some of the evidence. And it'll be a very brief presentation to it. But in the book that just came out, I've spent the last 4.5 years totally rewriting, updating with the evidence and everything, the old 2 volumes of Evidence and Demands a Verdict into the new Evidence that Demands a Verdict. And everything that I share is completely documented there. Now, in the evidence, whenever you examine any book of history, doesn't matter if it's the Bible, whatever, any book of antiquity, to determine if it's historically accurate, authentic, if it has integrity to it, if it's accurate, you apply an historiography. And a part of any good historiography, the principles in interpreting history, of studying history, in any good historiography is what's called the bibliographical test. And I remember one student spoke up and said, "Oh, I knew you'd bring the Bible in." I said, "I didn't say Bible. Bibliographical test." Now, a bibliographical test will ask 2 questions of the manuscripts of any work. Now, what is a manuscript? A manuscript, by definition, is a handwritten copy over against a printed copy. A handwritten copy over against a printed copy. And the first question they ask of a manuscript. Now, why do they ask these questions of a manuscript? Because here is 2 issues that I struggled with. Why I needed a historiography, why I needed to study the historical background of the Scriptures. Because there were 2 questions that haunted me. And I think they haunt a lot of people. The first question was this: is what we have today, called the Bible, and I'll look at only the New Testament today, is what we have in the New Testament what was written down 2,000 years ago? I think that's an honest question. Or has it been changed? Like a lot of people say, and usually without documented, oh, it's been changed, what people didn't like, they took out, what they did like, they put in, and it just changed down through the years. So the first question I had to struggle with, is what we have today what was written down? Second question, though, is one even haunted me more. Was what was written down true? Was what was written down true? Because if what was written down wasn't true, I could care less that what we have today is what was written down. And so there were 2 questions that haunted me before I ever became a Christian.
Truth is really based on facts. The facts that you can accept to be positive or negative. It's hard to put a good definition to that. But I always say truth would have to have a lot of positives to it. Like evidence or living it. You make your own truth in that respect.
I think truth is within the person. And it just naturally evolves.
I think a person finds their own truth. If they feel something is right and they feel that they need to find something out, they will find it. If they don't really care, then they won't find it out.
It could be discovered and created, but created, it's a frame of mind that could be passed on or discovered that someone actually looks for the truth.
I think it's all subjective. I mean, the truth is what it is to you, not to what everybody tells you it's supposed to be. So I think it has to be discovered, because the truth for you is going to be different from what it is for other people.
I think in many ways truth is felt inside. It's neither discovered nor created. But it's a sense of knowing that what you comprehend is correct.
So that would make truth relative?
No, I think you have to create truth. By proving with facts that something does exist. And those facts have to be solid. Take theorems in geometry. They're proven with facts. And to that extent, I think the truth has to have the same kind of basis.
And so this is why I had to examine the manuscripts and the background of the New Testament. And so the first question is, what is the timeline between the original, the autographa, the autographa, and the closest copy? You see, the rule of thumb is this. The closer the copy to the original, usually the greater the accuracy. That's the rule of thumb. Now, it's not always true, but the overwhelming majority of the time, it is true. But see, that question has a problem behind it. And the problem was this. Literature of antiquity was written on material that would perish. Much of the New Testament manuscript, like a lot of other literature of antiquity, was written on, it's similar to this here. It's called papyrus. And this is made up of the papyrus reed, which is grown in the very shallow waters of the Nile. And they take these reeds, they would slice them, and then they would place them crisscross, as if you look carefully here, you could see that. And then they'd put a glue on it, and then they'd press it together. And it's amazing. It really came out to be a very strong paper. Now, here was a problem. No matter what they did back then, the material would not last. It was not durable. It would start to rot away. And to show you how sensitive papyrus is, there was an archaeologist that found a portion of the Gospels in a cave. And it was on papyrus. And it had been there for hundreds of years. But the mistake he made, when he took it out of the caves that had been sealed, and certain moisture had been sealed and everything, he took it out into the desert, and he held it up to the light to look like this, and it disintegrated. That's why even like the Dead Sea Scrolls are kept behind tinted glass with a certain temperature and everything, or they disintegrate. And the reason you don't have originals is all the material would rot away. And so that's why you have the bibliographical test. Here you have, say, this is the original, and this is a copy. How far is the copy removed from the original? There's many ways to determine the very age of a manuscript. One, probably the best way, is the type of material that it's written on and its age. For example, if it's written on parchment or pottery or the skin of animals or from papyrus, which I already described, in studying that material, you can pretty well determine within a few years of when that manuscript was done, or that portion of a manuscript. Another way is by the division of the text. See, a lot of people don't realize that originally the text was not divided the way that we have it in the Bible today. Over the years, they would divide the text or even begin or end the verse at a different place. And so by studying the division of the text, you can narrow it down to a few years when a manuscript was done. And then if you ever picked up an old book and you're looking at the beginning, and maybe the first letter is kind of ornate or artistic, or there'll be a picture there, a drawing, a graphic. And by studying those in the manuscripts, they did the same thing. And by studying those, you can pretty well determine in a close proximity the years in which a manuscript was done. This morning in my home, I had a friend over, and I said, look what I found. It was a book handwritten back at 1500, almost 500 years ago. And as I opened up, he says, oh, look at the drawing. And see, it's that drawing that often you can determine the age. Those are just a few ways to determine how old a manuscript is. Now, one thing that I've learned over the years, the more I compare the scriptures with other literature of antiquity, the greater appreciation I have of the scriptures in comparison. For example, with Pliny the Younger, known as Plinius Secundus, from the time he wrote to the closest manuscript, everything else